Hi friends, it's me, host Eric again, host of Talking with Famous People. As you may be able to tell from the succession of uploads, I'm making some car musing videos today where I muse about the important topics of the day while driving. Anywho, what's this video's important topic? I guess the topic is actualization and type, and the different kind of challenges that different types face when coming to own their own identity. Because I think very few people truly own their identity until they understand themselves as a set of habits, strengths, and weaknesses that are implicit to them. Not in some sort of prescriptive sense of, I want to work on my weaknesses. You can't work on cognitive functions. It's a crazy idea to even say such a thing, because a cognitive function is a way of paying attention. I could look at a rock and talk about it. I could then work on my cognitive functions by paying attention to it with SE and pick it up. But the reason it's silly to work on cognitive functions or try to do that is your fundamental configuration will never change. Neither will your values that are associated with the functions. So I will always value ideation, communicative pop, and correctness as my way of being and doing. That doesn't mean I am unable completely to put myself in someone else's shoes. It doesn't mean I don't have emotions, even though I'm not bipolar. It just means that of all the landscape of reality, as I move through it, I'm paying the least attention to impacts, SE, and feelings, my own authenticities. Like a lot of people with bipolar, if you ask me how I'm feeling, most of the time I'm going to answer something like normal, or I'm not feeling anything. What I mean by that is I'm not paying attention to my emotionally subjective data very much, or to particularly any good effect. So, like, I'm actually feeling emotionally right now, I guess I'd say philosophical, but I guess that's not an emotion. I'm not unhappy, I'm not stressed, I got a few things to do. None of those things are how I feel emotionally, but that's really kind of the best I can do. My capacity to pay attention in that way is entirely atrophied because my tool function is the other way of paying attention with deliberation. If you're always deliberating from a disinterested perspective, then when it comes time to turn your attention to your interests, let's say what's important to you, then you find yourself at a bit of a loss. There's a lot of things I want to do when I get home. Possibly. I'd like to play at the pond. I got more concrete. I'd also potentially like to record some music or write some new lyrics. Yesterday when I was in the car, instead of recording a musing video, I recorded myself saying these lyrics. The idea of it is cognitive function driven. It is two people, the singer plus his significant other, and he's articulating how they're incompatible with the kind of structure like, I try being right, you want a real solution. I can't sleep at night, for you there's no confusion. I bought a cool hat, but you're too deep for that. And then the chorus is something along the lines of, it was great at first, passion was true, but there's no common ground between me and you. It's kind of like a breakup song, not having nothing to do with my personal life at all, but having to do with the fact that I want to write lyrics that resonate with people generally, and that are good lyrics rather than some sort of super abstract thing that doesn't really emotionally resonate with anybody, which is where I tend to naturally go with lyrics. But this isn't the first time I've purposefully written lyrics to pander to an audience. I have a song called What's the Big Problem? And I expressly wrote those lyrics to appeal to women or resonate with women. I wasn't trying to slay puss or anything. I just thought I get how chicks are subjected to a lot of, you need to work out more, you need to lose weight, that kind of stuff. And so, and also that chicks like dudes that had bad relationships with people they ultimately couldn't trust. So in that song, it begins with, oh, he came here with her, and what's the big problem that you can't endure? And then kind of scolds her for making excuses for him. And at the end, it's a prescriptive message of be done with him. And those are not lyrics that emerge at all from my personal experience. They're not even informed by my personal experience, really. But that's one of the benefits, I suppose, of being among the most communicative and least subjective types, is when I, instead of trying to write something authentic to me, when I intend to write something that universalizes and is resonant to everybody, it doesn't matter. I don't need any authentic personal attachment to the idea. I just need it to work artistically. And that would definitely not be the case for my neighbor Kay, who's an ENFP, and has expressed to me that what really matters is that she be feeling the emotion of that song as strongly and purely as possible, and that's how she knows it's good. Of course, that's not good, because you can't determine what's good by just feeling your emotions and the familiarity of the song to you. You have to evaluate it on a universal ground of introverted intuition. A song is either good or not good based entirely on its merits, not based at all on how the performer feels or whatever. I mean, they might give a better or worse performance if they're feeling it more or less, but the quality of the material itself does not change based on the performance. And you cannot perform so well that you can make a bad song good. Ultimately, songwriting is king. And sometimes that songwriting takes the form of track building. Regardless, the thing that you produce is a listening object, a song, a track, whatever you want to call it. It has only two possible statuses. Either it pops and it's rad, or it fails completely. And that's the beautiful challenge of being an artist. You're trying to catch lightning in a bottle, and it's almost impossible to do. When you do successfully make something that really manifests a true identity from the ether, then it's amazing, and also you have no idea how you did it. Because if you're using your own subjectivities drawing from them and that's how you did it, it's not going to be good. Like, the difference between expressing yourself and making art is conceding the universal frame that the beauty is not in the eye of the beholder, that art can be either good or bad, it can succeed or fail, and that it succeeds and fails on its own merits, not based on the identity of the person who makes it, right? So, I'm obviously on a big sidetrack here. that happens sometimes. I get a little sidetracked. So regarding identity and actualization, what you will find a lot on YouTube and presumably other forums is people offering prescriptions saying, I'm on YouTube because I want to help people. Just to be clear, that's not why I'm on YouTube. And they project their own experience, their own frame of reference as something that'll be the same for everybody else. Like, ever since I quit eating gluten, I felt amazing. So I just want to let everybody else out there know that you shouldn't eat gluten. Smoking pot is bad, etc. Of course, what they're really doing, those individuals, is not just projecting their own experience, but reassuring themselves that it's not just their own experience, but that it applies universally. And that by giving this advice, they're helping other people who don't know the truth of what they're saying yet. The problem is, when you're dealing with such parties, and I think when Rachel will come to me with complaints about something she's watched on YouTube, somebody said, yeah, some dumb bullshit. And from what I can tell, generally the people that she takes great exception with are ESFPs, who tend to believe that metaphysical development can be rendered into SI kind of stuff. Fasting, exercising more, changing your diet, etc. Then Rachel also watches certain kinds of relationship things. There's one lady she watched that said, you should never tell a man that you love him before he says it first. And of course, the reason this woman was saying that is because she was in a relationship where she was more into him than he was into her, I guess, you know? And so, instead of just acknowledging that there was a basic incompatibility there that he recognized that you didn't, it's easier to blame it on, I made this one mistake, otherwise everything would have gone great. You shouldn't make this same mistake. Of course, for people who are perfectly well suited to be together, like me and Rachel, it doesn't matter at all who said it first or who says it more often. Rachel tells me she loves me all the time, calls me handsome all the time. I'm much less consistent about those kind of verbalizations towards her, but I'm always responsive to them. And I get that what she's doing ultimately is pinging. She's making sure her countervalued 6-slot FI isn't going to be wounded, taken by surprise. She's making sure that we're good, we're tight, we're not going to break up. I don't worry about that because I'm SI front stack, which means I tend to operate under the assumption that inertia rules the day. As things are now, so will they continue to be. And familiarity is very effective in getting me to feel as though I know something. Rachel and I have been getting along fine, having a good relationship now for years. That's all the evidence I need that we're compatible. In contrast, Rachel wants to know from non-subjective data, not from our own experience, not from our own feelings even, but from some explanation of a structural or mechanical reality that she and I are compatible, meant to be together, aren't going to break up, what have you. All those things are true, but she will never be able to find an external justification that is satisfying, because the real way to evaluate that kind of question is by accessing your SI and your FI. Of course, having terrible FI, I had nothing but terrible relationships prior to this one. And I can only say that the reason this relationship worked out perfectly is luck, I guess. I mean, it's not like I was making rational, considered decisions about who to get with. I just wanted that finding a partner part to be over as quickly as possible, because I hate any kind of dating uncertainty. I need to know where I stand regarding intimacy matters. FI polar doesn't, I can't manage when I'm feeling a lot of emotions. I can't manage myself at all. Like, whatever's causing me to feel emotions needs to stop before I can resume life. If I'm starting to date some woman but it's not clear whether we're going out or not or something, I will be just completely hamstrung in all manner of life until this question is resolved, because I'm being forced to pay attention to my feelings. I've been engaged in a way by some woman that is more than friends, and now I need to know exactly where we're at. Are we getting married now, or are we breaking up? Those are our two choices. That's FI polar, one of the ways that it can manifest if you're an ENTP. If you're an ESTP, it probably doesn't manifest like that at all, because my issues with dating and intimacy and stuff stem from not just my FI polar, but also my SE8. Pulling the trigger, getting the impact, accomplishing the result, slaying the buzz, that is very much not in my wheelhouse. I'll sit at a table at a bar and muse about all the possible things that could happen if I were to go talk to that chick, and before I actually get up and do it, somebody with a little bit of sensing has already walked off with her. Now, this is just an example, metaphor thing. Obviously, I'm very happily married, and I'm not chasing puss. But the point is, if you take something like dating coaching, pickup artist type stuff, or even something a little bit less sleazy than that, just kind of advising men how to do better with women, well, just like you can't work on your cognitive functions, you can't fake it with that stuff either. Like, is it true that women are attracted to confident men who have some kind of leadership role, like community built around them or something? Yeah, I think that's probably true that most women like that. But that's not something you can fake at all. You can't teach somebody to be confident when their lack of confidence stems from a history of bad results. And for most people who want to learn how to do better with chicks, for example, they, even if they were to successfully fake these things that they're being taught, it wouldn't do any good, because you can only fake for so long, right? And maybe some of these guys who have trouble getting women are just trying to hit it and quit it. But I suspect the vast majority of them find physical intimacy intimidating until they're settled into the safety of a long-term relationship. So it's not going to do any good to teach them how to slay the puss. Some of those techniques do kind of work. Like talk less, speak in a lower voice, ask more questions. You know, make the chick feel safe. But that's not, for people who have trouble with that, there's no absolute value probably in scoring. And they may not even have any idea why they're doing this. Like, when I was young, I was very insecure about sexual inexperience. Like, I didn't have sex till I was 18. And before I did, I was just poundingly distressed by the fact that I was still a virgin, and from my perspective, everybody my same age was not. And that in general, everybody in my age group knew how to do dating stuff and talk to chicks, and I did not. So the fact was, I was a sensitive intuitive, and I was trying to live up to some standard. It wasn't my own standard and should never have been applied to me. Namely that, you know, to be manly or masculine, you gotta go get on a bunch of chicks. Anyhow, all this kind of ontological distress that ensues from a failure to understand individuals as attentional configurations could easily enough be solved by beginning a child's schooling by teaching them the different ways that people can pay attention. It's not that complicated, right? 2 different ways of knowing, 2 different ways of deliberating. You can distinguish any epistemic, whether it's knowledge or deliberation, by a simple rule. Does it take time or is it instantaneous? Is there a process or does it just happen? And it's easy enough to explain there are 2 different ways to act. You can actually do stuff or you can talk about stuff. Easy enough to explain that there are 2 ways to deliberate. That you can be disinterested like a referee or interested like a player on a team. The player on the team is always going to argue that the foul should go against the other team, regardless of whether, yeah, that's true. Because they're using language to pursue their interest of winning the game. The referee is using disinterest to call the game as accurately as possible without siding with either team. So you can explain disinterest and interest, and you can exemplify it easily enough. It's a little harder to explain and teach interface functions because they're a dynamic exchange between a person and a system or another person. So like extroverted feeling is interfacing with the world in a way that ensures others perceive you well and like you, and ensures that you can acquire utility from other people more successfully. Extroverted thinking is also that kind of dynamic interface, but it's not as easy to explain why, because the physical systems with which you're interfacing technically usually aren't dynamic. It's the particularism of them that makes it a dynamic process. Before we could Google stuff, people had to troubleshoot by evaluating first, how does this unique particular system operate? Say it's a refrigerator. And then testing in various ways, various components of the system in order to determine what's wrong, diagnose what's wrong, and then use extrovert thinking to figure out how to take out the bad part and get a new one and put a new one in and stuff. Nowadays we typically just Google shit like that, but the point is, that's all of the attentional manners. 2 interface, 2 deliberation, 2 knowledge, 2 action, and they're not that difficult to explain. The pushback that one might get from a couple versions of types are that, you know, you can't put me in this box. I'm a precious, unique snowflake. But even if they don't like the idea of being a type, everybody should gain utility from simply being able to articulate a comprehensive taxonomy of human consciousness and how we pay attention. That way, no matter what's happening, you can always say, okay, let's say there's any kind of conflict, you can actually understand it. You're appealing to introverted intuition. This other person is requiring a reducible, defensible argument, namely TI. But while TI and NI can get along just fine, when NI knows stuff that's not reducible, TI says we should retain the position that we don't know, because your intuition alone is not a good enough reason for me to ascribe to a given statement. If people had the language tools to describe what's happening intentionally in any given exchange, then people would not continue to talk past each other. Instead, there'd be purposeful discussions about which framework ought to be used in this context and why. And then there doesn't even need to be any further debate. Once it's clear that Mia is using the wrong framework for this kind of communication, then Mia doesn't have to even be wrong. He just has to recognize that you can't play tennis in the swimming pool. You can bring your rackets and the ball in there, but you're just getting in the way of the people who are swimming. And right now what we're doing is swimming. So just get out of the pool. You're not wrong. You're just playing an inappropriate sport for the field. They are wrong too, but that's not the point. I think it's more palatable to people to see that, oh, this is a violin quartet and I play the cello. That's more palatable to them than you're an idiot who has no business discussing this stuff. You don't know anything. You don't know how to think. People don't like to hear that.